I'm sure this is gonna piss people off, but I don't really care. PC is better. Alright, let's get into the video. What's up everybody, this is your boy Corey, and this is a PC I recently built for my son for his birthday. Everything on it is what I used except for the fan splitter. So the total came out to around $340 plus tax and shipping. But I didn't actually pay the tax and shipping because the promo code I used for using Android Pay pretty much paid that off. So this is a $340 build. This does not include the graphics card because he had a GTX 750, and I didn't pay for Windows, but I'll talk about that later in the video. This is a pretty good damn build for his first gaming PC. I was very surprised by some of the results in my benchmarks. Games that I was expecting to have trouble even hitting 30 FPS with the graphics card, but it did pretty good. The DIY PC case is pretty damn good for the cost. Some of the material, especially the metal on the outside, you could tell that's where they skimped out, because the inside pretty good. You can actually tell the difference between the two metals. They used a very thin aluminum on the outside, so that sucks. But it has a window, it has, you know, LED fans, and I want him to be like excited by his PC, you know, oh, I got cool colors and stuff like that. He's 10, so like he liked it. But for anybody that actually wants a cheap case that supports a lot of things, this actually has radiator support for a 120 on the top and 240 on the side, so it's pretty damn good. I wouldn't consider it if you're gonna do custom water cooling, because, well, if you got the money for that, you got the money for a case, and this does not support that great. But this is the motherboard that I'm using. It's very basic. It's simply just to house the CPU and the RAM. This only supports DDR4 at 2133, so if you buy anything more expensive, it's going to downclock it to the speed that it can run. So don't buy overly priced RAM. i3-6100 is the CPU, and a lot of people are going to sit here and go, oh Corey, why did you buy a dual core with hyper-threading? It's so useless and blah 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 blah. It's perfectly fine. I'm going to prove in a second that even with a very low powered 750 GTX 750, which is from like 2.5 years ago, and it's the very bottom card you can get until you start getting into the GTs. Alright, so it's the very bottom card for NVIDIA, and this is a very small CPU, dual core with hyper-threading, so it does have 4 logical cores, but it's not a quad core, which will hurt it in open world games, which I will talk about, like GTA 5 and stuff like that. Unless if you pull down some of the settings, especially that pertain to the actual CPU, it will actually like show very horrible frames per second. But if you pull back the distance of the draw distance and how many NPCs and traffic and all that, it'll be just fine. The graphics card does not actually hinder it too much in open world games. It's simply the CPU can't support all that, but it's still pretty good. The RAM I went with was one stick of 8 gigabytes, Kingston HyperX Fury RAM, very reliable, a brand name that everyone knows, so you don't have to worry about, oh, I know it's cheaper, but will it fuck up? And I actually got this for a lot less than what's on screen. I got it for like $40, $41 in the combo deal with the CPU, motherboard, and RAM. Pretty good. I went with capacity over speed with the hard drive, because I could have gotten SSD 256 gigabytes or 248, I forget what it was, but I went with quantity because it's a kid. He's gonna install things and not uninstall things, so he's gonna fill this up and not worry about it until he needs me to fix the problem. This is the EVGA 430 watt power supply, 80 plus certified, not bronze, just 80 plus certified. So it's at least going to get 80% efficiency, which what that means is you don't want to use anything more than 80% of the actual total watts, because then you won't be being as efficient and you'll pull a lot more watts than you actually need. And this is the benchmark for Metro Last Light for the computer. It actually did pretty well. These are high settings, not very high, with tessellation turned off, motion blur off, at 1080p high settings, no SSAA. So not the best quality, like it's still high quality settings, but people do run this at higher settings with tessellation. But even with all that, it runs at 53 frames per second. These are BioShock Infinite's stats that I got. When you actually finish the benchmark, it tells you to choose between Notepad and this and that. So I went with Notepad. What's highlighted is the average frames per second at very high settings. Everything turned on at 56 frames per second average, 95 maximum, 20 pretty much 28 minimum, but that rarely ever happens. Most of the time it was at least 55 frames per second, and I think that's pretty good for the PC that I have here. Now people are gonna go, what do you mean you didn't pay for Windows? I didn't pay for Windows. You can actually download Windows 10 from Microsoft. It's the Windows 10 tool, and you can put that on any PC. Sure, it'll tell you in the corner with activate Windows, and there's certain things you can't do with the computer, but for the most part you can do everything on that computer than you can with mine, which I have Windows 10. Now you can activate Windows by going to Kingwin and paying like $28 to have them send you a key. And people might go, don't use that because it's like G2A. It hasn't been confirmed, but suspicions about stolen keys around these sites are a thing. So if you don't want to support that, don't do it. But it is a good way to get any Windows you want for very cheap. Windows 10, again, Home Edition, is $28, which I think is pretty cool. They are OEM, that's a problem, so be careful, because when it does its hardware ID on yours, which I had with my original computer and switched to the one that I have now, it kind of gave me a problem, so be careful of that. But other than that, you can get Windows for cheap or not even deal with it, because all it'll do is leave a little watermark in the side of your computer down in the corner, and it does show up in games, like you see it while you're playing, but it's very transparent, it's white, so like in some games it'll be annoying, but honestly, you're not paying $100 for Windows. I think you can deal with a watermark till you can. So honestly, do that until you actually have the money. Don't waste your budget on Windows when you could waste it on your PC, especially when it does not stop you from using your computer like it used to. They've become a little more lax, but for the computer that I have here, it's pretty damn good. So, you know, this just proves to everybody that you can build a gaming PC for very cheap and get very good results, if not better results than the Xbox One and PS4, because I believe Metro Last Light Redux runs at 30 frames per second. I'm not sure, it might be 60. I'm sure Digital Foundry did a thing on it, but this is pretty much a $340 build with Windows, and it's beating the Xbox One and on par with the PS4. But that's all I got for this video. Peace out.